How's it going, everyone? Bryce Newberger here with the Soul Ward, and today I've got a very special guest. I've got Sean, and Sean and I go back a few years. We actually worked together a while ago, and Sean has a really interesting story that he told me a long time ago, and I wanted to refamiliarize myself with that story and give him a chance to kind of share his experiences and just where he's at now with his worldview and all that. So, Sean, you were a Mormon, right? And
I was.
you're no longer a Mormon, and that now, do I understand correctly? Is the correct term for that apostate?
Um, there are some nuances to that. Um, can't recall exactly what the apostate pure definition as. Because I didn't technically fall away, as they would say, and be apostate like that. But I did leave, and I did have my name officially removed, which puts me as an official ex-Mormon.
So there's a difference between. That's really interesting. I think we're already jumping the gun here, but I want to get into that. So there's a difference between falling away and and being an ex-Mormon versus an apostate.
It's open to interpretation, and a lot of it depends upon what side of the fence you're on, where your beliefs lie. Like if as someone who does not believe in the faith or in that religion anymore, I there's nothing to fall away from. There's nothing that that my soul is at stake. I'm not apostate. I'm not getting dragged down by Satan. So it's null to me. It means nothing to me. But those who are true believing Mormons, TBMs, or true blue Mormons, or true believing Mormons, TBM, that's a common acronym. They will call me apostate or ex-Mormon or have fallen away. And they are all generally have some sort of negative, in their eyes, a negative connotation to it, meaning like you're cast out, you're an untouchable, and again, to varying degrees depending on the person and the context and whatnot.
Now, I've heard that it's worse to be. I'm just going to use the word apostate because they would call you an apostate.
Yeah.
Though
Yeah.
you don't, because you were saying you don't take, like, to you, you're not an apostate because you're saying it's not real. There's nothing to fall away from. Your soul's not extate. But I've heard that it's worse to be a fallen away Mormon or an apostate than it is to just not convert to Mormonism in the first place. Have you ever heard that, or am I correct?
Yeah,
there?
you are definitely correct. That is a teaching. I wouldn't. And again, I'm really not trying to be wishy-washy.
Yeah.
But the church, for as much as they say, and I try not to open a new door and a new tangent, for as much as they say that they are unchanging in their faith and their doctrine, it evolves constantly. And so the church that I grew up in, for sure, that was a teaching. It was like one of your foundations of faith, of how blessed and lucky you are to be born into the Mormon church. That you are raised with the truth and the light and the knowledge that was restored to us through the prophet of Joseph Smith. But so in that regard, so say I'm born in the church or I convert to the church, and I go through the rites, the rituals, to get baptized, do all the gift of the Holy Ghost. I can do all those things, and then I choose to leave. That kind of puts you in this, like, I had the answer and I chose to walk away anyways, and that basically, like, knocks you well down, far below the people who never had a chance to hear and accept the teachings of the Mormon Church. So, in the Mormons' eyes, that basically, that makes you that much worse because you knowingly turned away from their truths.
And that's an interesting thing that comes up because, like, in just typical like Protestant Christianity that I grew up in, there's not layers, right? And I think that's one thing that I hear differently between like the religion I grew up in and the religion you grew up in is like in Christianity, it's like you're either in heaven or you're not. Whereas in Mormonism, it's like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like you can be, there's levels of heaven that you can get into. The highest level is like you have to be in part of what's called the Melchizedek priesthood, right? And then
you have to do several things to qualify for that. Yeah.
But there's layers of hell. There's layers of hell too, right? Like you work your way out of hell, if I understand correctly, according to Mormonism.
No. There's again that's so the official textbook to doctrine. There are three kingdoms of heaven, and there's an acronym Sea-Turtle, and seriously, it is Sea-Turtle, and that stands for from best to worst of the three: Celestial Kingdom, Telestial Kingdom, Terrestrial Kingdom. Sea-Turtle, and then after that is outer darkness, and that is basically hell.
That completely changes the context of the movie Finding Nemo to me, where the sea turtles now are just okay, so very interesting, and I love all the tangents. So with all that kind of understanding where you would be now, you like someone who's fallen away would be at the lowest level of hell, right? Is that
basically
correct? Yeah. Is there an acronym for that? Like land turtle?
Is there what?
No,
there's not.
None for hell.
So that one is somewhat open to debate. Now there is modern Mormon revelation that discusses about like having known and rejected the truth, and depending on the Mormon you speak with, you'll get different answers. Which is a whole nother interesting thing about how the gospel and the teachings and the worthiness, all that kind of stuff, it varies wildly depending on who your local leadership is. Here, East Coast, different country. So it's like, so God is inconsistent. Just depends where you live.
So is there, and then there's there's almost like a pope, right? Like the main prophet that everyone's under, right? Okay.
Yes.
But then you're saying below that, though, it can vary based on your geographical region.
Uh-huh.
And I think we saw that in the again in Catholicism between the like Eastern Orthodox and Western Orthodox. They had a massive falling out between each other back in church history, where like the Eastern Orthodox was like worshiping statues, and the Western Orthodox like, no, you can't do that. And then they had this like difference of theology. So it's really interesting, though. Yeah. So, anyways, sometimes I'm putting this into context for myself. But okay,
no, it's cool. I forgot the original questions.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. We were just talking about layers of hell and where you would be, and you were just saying that there's a.
Oh, that's.
You were saying it depends on what your geographical region is. So if you ever do fall back into Mormonism, like believing it, you might want to move to the geographical region that places you in the highest level of hell.
I know. No. Right. So to answer the question about depending where you live, but at the core of it, the question that's debated is what determines having a knowledge of the truth. And that's the crux of it right there. Where so you could say like, well, I was never like legitimately physically visited by an angel, so I still have a level of faith, so I don't have knowledge. It's still in the realm of faith. But then others will. So in that regard, I won't get cast into outer darkness. I would just go to the terrestrial kingdom, the lowest of the heavens, because I'm still like a decent person, right? But then there's other people who will say like, no, you have received promptings and guidance from the Holy Ghost. You've witnessed miracles, so that can push me from a faith to knowledge, and in that regard, I'm denying it, and then I would go to outer darkness. So it depends.
See, and that's the adjusting my audio for a second. That's the thing that's really fascinating about you, and which is why, like, I'd almost like to see if I could steal more of your time in the future, because that's what I find fascinating. Is you are such a knowledgeable person when it comes to this whole movement, and that gets into your story. So let's start with your story, and then people can see kind of why I consider you, and maybe you consider you to be a knowledgeable person in this. Though I do think it would be interesting. What I'd love to have someday in the future is a TBN. A TBM, True Believing Mormon, on. Yeah. And listen to it from their mouth, and then see if I pick up anything different. So your upbringing, let's start there. Was your family, were you born into a Mormon family?
Yes, I was. A long line of Mormons, definitely. Yeah.
Is there? No, I see again. What I keep seeing is like layers in the Mormon religion. Does that benefit you at all? Does that benefit anyone at all? Like for being like a Mormon lineage?
Not really. No, it's just one-upping each other. There's no real value to it. Yeah. I mean, and again, I mean, it's Mormons don't really see it. Well, maybe some do, but it seems to be more accepted as an ex-Mormon, where once you're out of the church and you look back in, you definitely see that there's like Mormon royalty, right? And if you trace back like leadership and whatnot, it's interesting that there's always some kind of a connection to the top dogs of the church. Either that, or you are filthy rich and you've been duped so hard and you've given so much money to the church that you'll climb the ranks that way. I mean, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and so you went on to, you were a Mormon all the way to, you went on your mission, right?
Yeah.
And we talked previously, you said that you were a real, like, on fire Mormon, if I understand correctly. You were like witnessing, you were, trying to, were you trying to convert other people as well? Or like speak a little bit about your mindset when it came to back to being a, super Mormon.
All right. So, super Mormon. Yeah, I did everything as asked and required and as difficult, and I did it with a smile. I did served 2 years in Mississippi and Louisiana. Knocking on doors is very much a attracting mission, which means that you find your converts by knocking on doors and handing out pass along cards and just stopping people on the street. For anybody who knows me, who may end up watching this, especially who knew me on my mission, while I did convert and baptize a fair number of people, most of the mission rules, I was like, nah, like Mormon standard rules, sure, I'll keep those. But like mission rules, I can't be a robot. I'm not going to be a robot. And the quote that I absolutely detested and still do was, Mormons are going to hate this. If I say Gordon Hinckley, it's offensive, not offensive, but it's this weird thing that the top leadership of the church, you have to like say include their middle initial or whatever. So Gordon B. Hinckley once said in the early 90s,
yeah.
Said, and it's with reverence. But there was a quote by him. Not truly by him. It was when he was on his mission. And he was having a really tough time, and he wrote a letter home to his father, and his father said, "Forget yourself and go to work." And then Gordon Hinckley said over the pulpit many years ago, he gave that in one of his speeches, in one of his talks, and then that has been like the mantra for missionaries forever, ever since then. And I hated it so much because I'm like, I'm not a robot. I am not soulless. I am not just a zombie for the church. I am me behind this name tag saying Elder Bingham, which I have right there. Oh. I can grab it in like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Let's see it.
Hold on. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. There it is.
Wow, you still have it.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I guess there goes my last name, you guys.
Oh well, I can blur that out. Why does elder like that sounds kind of young to have the name elder?
It's yeah, yeah. It's more. It's they defined it as teacher.
Mm,
Like I mean, so
yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. But anyways, behind the name tag, I am still Sean. I am still a person with likes and favorites and opinions, and I could it just didn't it never sat well with me. Like I'll get along, but the core of me marches to my own beat, and I can't put that away. That I am who I am. So
Okay. And so
like yeah.
were the rules for being on your mission like more so it's what I'm picking up is that they were more strict than not being on a mission.
Yeah.
Was it
Oh
more
yeah.
was like now you're bringing up like Gordon Hinckley or is it Gordon B Hinckley as you should say it?
Yeah, yeah. Gordon B. Hinckley.
Is that like one of the rules? Is it like even down to how you speak or is that just in
Um,
general?
oh, there are rules so when on your mission, every missionary has a little white handbook. If it's still the same as when I was on my mission, I'm sure it is. In the little white handbook, you're required to read it like once a week. It's about I don't know, like 2 by 3 inches big, and it's generally in your front pocket behind your name tag, and it's full of rules. And like there are rules for ridiculous things. One of them is like you'll speak proper as a representative of God and the Church and of Jesus Christ at all times. You won't use slang. You won't use bad language, anything like that. You will refer to your missionary companions as elder so and so. You'll never refer to them by their first name or their last name. It always needs to have elder and last name.
Mm.
There's even a rule. I heard they took it out, but maybe it's still in there. There's literally a rule in there that says you must sleep in the same room as your missionary companion, but not in the same bed.
Oh. Well.
Like near word for word, it says that. It's interesting.
Well, this day and age, it's a good distinction for the Me Too movement, but
Yeah,
you never
yeah,
be too careful. So okay, and so you went on this mission. When you went on the mission, you were considered an elder at that point.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the young like got to be teenager, right? Like Mormons that go door to door. Are they teenagers or are they just young 20s?
So when I did my mission in the late 2000s, you're eligible to go on, and men are eligible to go on a mission as soon as they turn 19.
Oh, okay, okay.
And that changed 4 or 5 years ago. Now you can go as early as 18 years old.
Okay, because the kids who knock on my door, they always seem super young. But then again, I looked like I was 18 until this morning. But so are they all considered elder at that point?
Yeah.
Interesting.
If there's a name tag, if they have that little name tag I showed you, yeah, they are. They have the official title in the Church of Elder.
Now they're always super nice. They're always super friendly, right? And they help people with things. Did you do that work back then, like with a cheerful heart, or was it like, man, I gotta mow this guy's lawn? Like, what was your take on all that?
Yeah, the vast majority. I'm sure there were times I can't recall any, but I'm sure there were times where I was like not a happy camper. It's probably because we had to get up really early or whatnot. But for the most part, I honestly enjoyed all of the service and kind of stuff like that. I mean, one, because I felt like it was a different way to serve, and like through acts of kindness, like actions speak louder than words, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe people will come and ask and inquire, like, what are you all about? By seeing us going out of our way to help people and do various things. But also, because it was such a heavily like tracting door to door type mission, like missionaries will often do like 7 to 8 hours a day, knocking on doors all day, weeks on end. So when you got to take a break from that and go do a service project, a clean up, whatever, yard work, yeah, we always jumped on it because it got to break up the monotony.
There was I was in Vegas as a youth pastor, and I was at a Chili's with one of my students, and we were just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
He was a senior. He got off school early, so we were hanging out just talking. And there was a table of a whole bunch of Mormon missionaries sitting down, and I was like, let's go sit with them. And I didn't want to do anything but just talk to them. I wanted to hear about their experiences. I wanted to see how things are going. I just wanted to be nice to them. But I imagine that you probably got a lot of doors slammed in your face. Do you? Did you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Did you get really angry, like Christians, like waving their Bible at you, like you're a cult,
All the time. The time. I know that in the Mormon world, it's almost, as a missionary, it's almost like a like missionary bingo. Like, what experiences did you have? And I would say, like, one of the top ones is have a gun pulled on you for knocking on their door.
Oh, jeez.
And I can say that I actually had that at least only once. Only once. Yeah.
Was it terrifying?
Not really.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like I know you well enough to know that you were probably not. you have such a calm demeanor.
Well, I mean, that brings in. Yes, thank you. I would say that contributes to it, but at the same, in another way, like, to the level of indoctrination and just blindness to the church, and the level of like cultishness going on. There's definitely like obviously there's like that fear of being hurt physically, right? Mm-hmm. But then you are also often reinforced with the idea and knowledge that like you are God's like you're on fire for God. You are going out of your way. You are dedicating 2 years of your life. If you are ever to get hurt or die on your mission, that is a get out of jail free card straight to the celestial kingdom. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, like, I don't want to say like I ever was like, yeah, I want to be a martyr, but there were some subtleties of like, well, if I do die, I'm going to the best heaven, so no skin off my back.
Yeah, right. You have a better reward waiting for you at that point. Okay, so let's talk about your deconversion. It sounds like you were really like passionate about what you were doing. So how did falling away come about?
Well, I chose to step away.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yes.
Falling away connotates that like that I wasn't up to the challenge. I wasn't worthy enough, and that's not at all the case.
Yeah.
So I chose to leave the church when I was about 22. My story is a little bit different than most. I think I've spoken with one person who had a similar story. Out of all the ex-Mormons I've spoken with. But so mine, how it's a little different is, I didn't have, I was a through and through true bleeding Mormon. I card carrying, like, temple recommend in my wallet at all times. All the way worthy everything. And I'm rambling because I'm trying to form my thoughts as I speak.
Yeah.
I woke up one day and it was like, I would say like, I understood there was anti literature out there, and I don't want to say I steered clear of it. I had more important things to do. It wasn't worth my time. I know what I believe, so why rock the boat? And this was before like the CES letter, if you're Mormon or on the fence, look up CES letter. It is a powerful document that will really change your perception of the church and its teachings, past, present, and all that.
That's called the CES letter?
Yes, I believe it's cesletter.org. Another really great one is Letter to My Wife. That is a really great one. It's a little bit more softer, more, I would almost say like more conversational, not just like a factual like document. And And then there are the gospel topic essays, which they were produced by the church, made by the church. They are probably still on the church's official website, though you cannot find them by using the search bar on the church website. You can't at all. It's buried so deep. And if you find them, which you'll need to use like some ex-Mormon website to find it, and a link directly to it, you'll see that there is no author. There's nothing on it. They often change. And they are these gospel topic essays. There's like nearly a dozen of them that really try to spearhead a lot of the concerning things about the church doctrine or history. And a lot of them are smoking guns. But the church has them there on the website saying like, see, we knew about this all along. There's no concern here.
I'm going to put those resources in
Cool.
like links when we post this video too, just so people can just, so when you guys are watching, you can just look down and click them.
Cool.
Barring
And
that I
then
can find them, but
Yeah, and then I would say the most active community online is Reddit's Ex-Mormon. It's just r/Ex-Mormon. Fantastic resource. So I'll unsponsored plugs. There you go, guys.
yeah. So how'd you come into those?
So I guess putting all that out there, I didn't touch any of those. CS Letter did not exist. The gospel topic essays did not exist. I think Letter to My Wife was out there, but I didn't know of it at the time. So I read my Book of Mormon every single day. I prayed twice a day. I did everything exactly as I should. But I woke up one day and something didn't feel right, and I couldn't figure it out. I've told you this story before, years ago. And I had no idea what it was. And I struggled for a couple months trying to figure it out. Doing things differently, all within the confines of the church teachings. And it got to a point where like nothing was satisfying this feeling of something's not right in my life. And it was to the point where it was like 24/7. It was always at the front of my mind, like, what is going on? Something I need to do. What is this thing I need to do? And eventually, I decided that maybe it's. So I'd recently gotten home from my mission, so I was living at home at the time, and I decided like maybe this is just that like spread my wings and move out kind of feeling that I needed to do. So I decided to move out, and my sister was sick, really sick at the time, in the hospital. So I decided I'm going to move near her, and that will be my excuse because she doesn't have a lot of support. So I'm going to move and live near her and go to college, and that should fix this issue, this something's not right feeling.
Would you call it a burning in your bosom?
Yes, yes. Tums did not help it.
All right, sorry, go on.
That was a terrible joke. So that was the plan, and I felt really good. And so I got everything set. I found a place to stay. I did my deposit for the room I was going to live in. I went up to visit, and then while I was up there, my parents literally made a crazy last-minute decision to flip their life upside down and move with me because they also wanted to be closer to my sister, and I had other siblings near that area. So they're like, we might as well just move up to it's Utah. We might as well move up to Utah anyways to be closer because that's where our family is migrating to anyways. And that devastated me and ruined all of my plans.
Because you were hoping for some autonomy.
Yes. Yeah. And my parents were even like, and you don't have to find a place to live anymore. You can live with us. It'll be great. I kind of feel bad about it now. But at one point where I was really frustrated, my parents pulled me aside, and I kind of was like, I kind of spilled the beans. I was like, I wasn't moving up here to help my sister. I was moving here to separate from you guys so I could like be my own person.
Yeah.
And I said like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but now I'm gonna find somewhere else to live.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a very true to yourself kind of statement, though, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
spread those wings.
um, yeah. So that was the case. Yeah, and then my mom stayed in Utah, and she had 2 weeks to find a place for the family to live. And then during those 2 weeks, I went back home to pack up the house. And then at the end of 2 weeks, there'd be a place to drive the moving trucks to and unload. And that's basically what happened. But in those 2 weeks, I had like 2 weeks to really sit and think. And and it dawned on me. I don't know exactly when, but it dawned on me like, what if it's the church? And that was really scary. That went against everything that I'd ever been taught and believe and all these things. But as much as that like couldn't shake the feeling that something's off and wrong in my life, the what if it's the church? As soon as that thought occurred, it was right there next to it the whole time.
So it's kind of like a eureka moment for you.
Yeah, like holy shit, like because that's basically saying like go to jail, go to hell.
There's a lot. There's
like,
a lot of
you're done, you're over.
incentivization not to leave the church, right? Even just
Sorry,
like
what was that?
I said, there's a lot of incentivization within the theology to never leave the church, right?
Oh yeah,
More than just
yeah.
hell, but like we're talking, which we'll probably get into in a moment, but like being shunned and being ousted and all that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, for sure. Yes, definitely. Um, it was scary, and but I decided like at the end of the 2 weeks, um, I helped to drive the moving truck up to the new house, which my mom was able to do, and then I flew back here because I left my car and all my belongings here at a friend's house. So I flew back to Arizona, um, um, slept on a friend's couch for a couple weeks, and at that point I was like, um, there was several other things in moving. I went back to Utah one more time, but at that point, that's when I was basically like, um, all right, it's the church. It's now or never. I'm doing it, and it was really interesting. Like, so it's common. I don't say most. It's common that when people leave the church or have this, um, um, they decide that they want to change or they don't know that they no longer believe, it's very slow because of how scary it is and how like your community, your family, your friends, they will all like almost all just cut you out. Not always, but it's a very, very common thing. Despite what active TBMs will say, they say, no, we love you. It's not the case. It's like actions speak louder than words. Go online, go meet 5 ex-Mormons, and you'll probably find 4 or 5 identical scenarios where they were ostracized.
Yeah.
So, but a active believing Mormon will deny it all day. It's really interesting. But anyways, I decided like, again, true to myself. Like, here's how I feel. Here's the decision. Here's what I've come to, and then literally, I woke up one morning, decided to take out my temple recommend card, put it in a drawer, decided to not wear garments. I was wearing them every day at the time.
Yeah.
And never looked back. That was the last time that I willingly. So the Sunday prior to that was the last time that I willingly went to church. It was the last time that I put on garments. It was the last time I carried my temple recommend card. It was the it was the last time that I have ever said a prayer. And I was at peace 100%. All the way through, I was at peace with it. And I moved in with somebody down in Arizona. and even for a while, I defended the church. I almost within a year, oh, up to almost a year of being out of the church, I was like, I still not like staunchly actively defended it, but I was like, call it my Rumspringa. This is my time to really stretch my feet out in the world. Look at the another slice of life. But once this is over, I will go back to my roots and I'll go back to the church. That's not a bad organization. That's where I'll probably end up raising my family. I'll probably go back to it. This is just like, call it a prompting from the Holy Ghost that I needed to step away. I needed to figure some stuff out, and the church didn't have a place for me at the time. So I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sinful. I felt like it was a thorough, stronger than any prompting of the Spirit that I had ever had, that I needed to remove myself from the church. So I felt zero guilt. I did not feel bad about it at all. And that's why it wasn't even ripping a Band-Aid off. It was just like flip a switch. I'm done. I'm out.
No, that is something interesting too. If I could maybe dissect that a little bit, is if I understand what I've heard about Mormonism, and as I've talked to other Mormons, and I say other Mormons as if you are one, but you know what I mean. It does seem like that prompting of the Spirit, and as I made the joke earlier, the burning in the bosom. That is because when you get into, as we've gotten into, when we used to just talk over coffee at work, like a lot of the archaeological fallacies that revolve around Mormonism and the lack of and like horses in America before there were ever horses in America, stuff like that. It's
anachronisms.
Yeah, and what is that called?
Anachronisms.
Yeah, like it seems like the reason why those can exist so much within Mormonism and not really be a problem is because the leading of the Spirit is kind of the number one motivator, right? More than, like, I talked to a Mormon on Mormon.org a long time ago, and I could tell it was a female by the name on the chat. And I asked her
Those are missionaries in the MTC.
Okay. I used to get on there.
Yeah.
I think I used to do this while I was with you, but I used to get on there and I would just chat with them. And
I did that.
Yeah. And I was asking her about the Melchizedek priesthood. And I asked her, like, does it make you sad that you can't enter the highest level of heaven because you're a woman? And she's like, I feel that God wouldn't do that. And I was like, but your doctrine says, and it just seemed like it didn't matter, because if you felt something, it was almost the higher authority. Is that, did that kind of work against them in a way then when it came to you being felt to like leave the church?
Sorry, I had a pop up on my screen. Could you say that question one more time?
So did that kind of feelings-based, I'll call it theology, feelings-based theology kind of work against Mormonism for you leaving the church? Because if people brought up something, you'd say, well, I felt led to.
Oh, for sure. Because it's such a strong, feeling and prompted, they are just as legitimate as facts, and that you can't argue with it, right? And I don't want to say it's strictly within Mormonism. I'm not going to argue your opinions with you. It's your opinion, right? Yeah. But pulling the I've been prompted card it's a pretty good trump card for most things. So when I have people telling me about how I'm throwing my life away and I'm gonna go to hell, and Satan is so cunning and deceiving that once he brings me down the path of wickedness, that once I'm far enough along, that's when he's gonna strike and really, really come at me to make sure I can never climb my way back up and get on that straight and narrow again. And it's just a matter of time. As soon as I fall deep enough, he's gonna come at me and hurt, and I've had people literally say he's gonna basically kill you when you're at your worst, so there's no chance of repentance. And then I'm stuck in hell forever.
And you just responded that, but I was prompted. Yeah. I know some Christian missionaries that specialize in witnessing to Mormons, and one of the big tactics they've developed is to pray with Mormons, because They say like,
Interesting.
yeah. So these missionaries will go out, and they're specifically in Utah for the most part, if you can imagine why. And they'll go to these Mormon campuses and be like, "Can I pray with you?" Like they'll talk about Jesus, they'll talk about Mormon anachronisms and things like that, and then they'll be like, "Can I pray with you?" And because when they pray, if they get a prompting or a feeling, that's going to be bigger than any fact that missionary can drop on them. What's your first initial take of that? Like, have you ever heard of that before?
No, but they're wasting their time.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of my opinions of religion,
Yeah, totally.
for whatever team, they're wasting their time. Like, I understand like the persecution complex of like, I'm going into the lion's den, I'm going to the most difficult place ever, and then I'm gonna proclaim my faith, and I'm gonna come out stronger, and more convicted in my beliefs. That's all they're doing. In my opinion.
Yeah,
And they may have other purposes or outcomes, whatnot. Maybe they will get a convert or two, but that's my perception of it.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about like this prompting of if I'm getting this scenario right, the non-Mormon missionaries are the ones offering the prayer.
Yeah.
And during this prayer, the Mormons, if they have a prompting, would then be like, "Oh shit, their church is the right one. I'm out. Let's go." No, yeah. It's not going to happen. Well, Let me. I guess explain what I mean. Like, sure, they very likely will get a prompting, but Mormons have been primed and prepared for that through and through, because they actively teach all churches have truth. All churches have God's hand in them. They don't have the full truth. So people can have religious experiences. They can get promptings. They can be guided. But they are not going to have the fullness of the gospel. They do not have the gospel that has been restored by Joseph Smith. They do not have the full truth. They might have pieces and parts of it, but they don't have the whole truth. So sure, I will have a prayer with you, and I may feel a prompting of the Holy Ghost of the things which you are saying are true. That has nothing to do with your beliefs. That has to do with you have partial truth.
That's a really good distinction. And that's again why kind of one of the reasons why I created the Soul Ward for things like that, because I came from a Christian perspective background. I hear these, missionaries talk, and now here I have a walked away and apostate Mormon, this is the word verbiage Mormon, who you can give me the inside scoop on these things. And you're not, we can get into I want to get into like these worldview questions at the end to see where you sit currently with religion and spirituality and worldview. But you would say you're probably not religious at all now, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and so I think that's why it's such a unique perspective, and why I love the melting pot of knowledge. But so to get back to it a little bit, you had this deconversion, and it was just kind of something hit you, like maybe I need to move out. You had a moment on a friend's couch or some time on a friend's couch, and then it hit you, maybe it's the church, and that was enough of you to feel, again, as you kind of put it, like a prompting. You were still religious at that point, but you were like, let's go sow some wild oats. Let's, and then let's come back to Mormonism. But then it gave way to full on, this is all fake. This is not real, right?
Yeah.
And so what did that conversion look like? Or deconversion, so to speak.
Sure. So after about a year being out of the church, I think that just enough time had passed that I feel like I had it was like my emerald glasses had been removed or faded enough that I could start looking at the church from a new perspective, I guess. And so I was like, hey, I've heard a lot of interesting things about the church. I've never either been willing I guess, truthfully wanted to look into it because it was scary, right? Well, I don't know if scary is the right word, because that denotes that there is a possibility of it being true, and as a true believing Mormon,
There's consequences.
no, there's no way, there's no possible way it could be true. So what's there to be scared about?
Yeah, but I mean, there's like consequences of like lost relationships with family, being ostracized,
Right.
like that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I decided, like, hey, I've heard a lot of interesting things. I let's scratch the surface a little bit, because like I love knowledge, I love educating myself, I love knowing like what makes something tick. I It's not just getting the answer to the problem. I want to know how the answer is derived, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of channeled that towards the church, and I did a little research, and it slowly opened the floodgates where a lot of really interesting things came up. And the more I read, the more like, and then I went from like out of the church but still defending and thinking I'll go back one day, and then it was a slow, steady decline. I wouldn't say, some people would say I went like head deep into ex-Mormon anti-literature, whatever. I think it was a slow and steady exposure to, but because my opinions of the church, it didn't immediately go like they are terrible, vile people. It was like, oh well, they've got a shady history. Oh well, they they made mistakes, and then it just slowly went from like, maybe I don't want to believe the church, but it's still a good family oriented environment. And then it's like, nope, here's some valid proof that it is like not even a good place for your family to be. And I stand by that still. I will never have my kids go into that building. I mean, like, I'm not. I guess I want to say never. I'm going to raise my kids. I'm not going to teach them like to be anti-religion, anti-God, anything like that. I won't. It is completely their choice. What I will do is I will teach my kids to have a strong, questioning head on their shoulders, so that when they inevitably come up against Mormons or any kind of religion or anything, religion or not, they will have the tools to navigate it successfully on their own. Anyways, that's a bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
But
But a good
but I
tangent. I like
slowly,
it.
yeah, thanks. But I slowly realized more and more that like these things that I thought the church were are not. And over the course of a couple of years, I pretty quick after that first year being out, and I started looking at the church, I realized like I'm not going back. But then slowly over the next couple of years, I realized how awful of an organization that they really are.
Because of all the corruption and like cover-ups and those kind of allegations that come against them.
Yeah, whitewashing the history, multiple versions, like core events, like pillars of the foundations of the church, they're made up. Um, and then like core doctrinal beliefs, they weren't inspired by God.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, the word of wisdom is, there's a section that talks about tobacco. Well, if you look at other events, like Joseph Smith and his buddies held meetings in their house, and Emma, his wife at the time, hated having to clean up for their like all the tobacco like mess that they would leave behind. I could be wrong, but if I remember right, they were upstairs spitting tobacco on the floor all the time, and it would like drip down or something, and Emma would have to clean it up. I don't remember the full details, but basically, Emma complained to Joseph Smith, and Joseph miraculously received revelation from God that we should no longer use tobacco. Because if I say we shouldn't use tobacco anymore, then be like, screw you, man.
Yeah.
But if God says it, oh, we better not.
And if I've heard that take, and I heard that she complained to Joseph about that, and then he went away and had this divine revelation. And if I remember what I've heard correctly, and I don't want to spread misinformation here, so everyone, fact check this, but I think I also heard that in that same word of like, hey, no more tobacco, it was also no more hot drinks, which is where,
yes,
because Emma was a tea drinker. So it's kind of like, if I can't have tobacco, you can't have tea. But again, like that's what I've heard.
That's up for debate, right? But yes, all within the word of wisdom. It's about, tea, tobacco, drugs, various things like that. Interesting point. I'll soapbox for a second. Mormons love to look at the word of wisdom when it focuses on like alcohol and tea and tobacco. But if they read just another verse or two, it says like eat meat sparingly. Don't just stuff your face with nasty like fattening foods. Like be healthy. They don't care about that part. Like, oh, give me this 5 energy drinks, but you're going to hell if you drink that coffee. It's true.
I've seen some of that as well. So to move this right along, as we're kind of approaching like a little bit of the end of this. So was there a coming out moment for you? Like you mentioned, it was kind of gradual, but was there a moment where you're like, hey, I'm not about that anymore?
No, I didn't. I did make a post on Facebook. I think just to because there was a lot of like, I don't know, rumors or just unsure where I stood. So I think I made not even like a grandstand or anything. I think I made just a little post saying, hey guys, I'm out. I no longer believe, but that was still a while. I didn't do that until a while after I left the church.
Like you felt there shouldn't have been controversy at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I didn't care to make an announcement or a grand exit or throw a party. Like I don't need the fanfare. Like if people care and if people want to know, they'll find out. I don't need to go and make a big announcement. So
yeah, well, and only go as personal as you want with this. But when did it start affecting your relation, or did it affect your relationship with friends or family?
Yeah, my siblings are pretty cool with it. They're like, hey, whatever makes you happy, we're still family. We love you. My parents had a very difficult time accepting it. They tried many different strategies for me to go back to church. I'll leave it at that, but they weren't good. It was not a happy time. We had a very, very rocky relationship for a very long time. It has been rebuilt now. It's good.
It's good.
And as for like outside of family relationships and community, I went a little too intense, but I basically decided like, if I'm leaving the church, I'm not going to have my heart broken and be led on and gaslighted and all these things, which I'm sure like maybe there's a few people who wouldn't mind and are still cool and will still want to be friends. But I basically was like, and I also didn't live near them anymore. But I pretty much just clean slated my life. Community, friends, everything. Yeah. And I didn't want to make like a combative or an offensive like post and say like I no longer believe. I just left it as it is. And I've had various people reach out and like being like, hey man, you want to go grab dinner, hang out, and not try to reconvert me, but just like because they enjoyed my company, which I was receptive and appreciated. But I didn't want to like make a big deal about it.
Yeah. So
I just kind of walked away.
Yeah.
From everything.
It's very interesting, and I've read in you since knowing you a real what I really appreciate about your story is you reached a point where it was like you're like, if this is true, I want to do it. Right. I want to go in that like a real passion for truth is what I kind of
Mhm.
see in you, and facts and logic. And it even came up in your tangent when you're raising your kids to have a good, facts based, logic based head on their shoulders.
Yeah.
So do you think do you think that was always there, or do you think that part of you kind of was awoken from this process?
Um, Definitely always there, but um, it was like as a Mormon, it was like it was there, but confined, right?
Mm,
You're allowed. Here's your pre-approved list of questions you're allowed to ask,
yeah.
right? But now it's like the gloves are off, and I can apply this like desire for truth everywhere.
Yeah.
So it really grew to much more than it previously was.
Okay, that's cool. That and I think that's why we've always gotten along, because we've gone out and gotten drinks or had coffee and just really connected over. I feel like our friendship has been built kind of around that. And I was technically your boss at one point in time, so you know, no. But so have you ever had since then? Have you ever had any like missionaries knock on your door?
A couple times, yeah.
What was that process like? Like, did you welcome in? Did you like?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. What did it look like?
Yeah.
If you want to, you don't have to go into full detail, but like, do you try and like ask them the harder questions, knowing they're not prepared for it, or anything like that?
I mean, I've been on that side of the fence. I know exactly what they're feeling, what they're going through. And there's very much like a spidey sense as a missionary of like, this guy is like, and he's got some heavy questions ready. He's just itching to ask us. And I never wanted to give off that vibe, because more than my desire to like force the truth on them, they're not going to accept it. It has to be something that they're going to discover on their own. It needs to be something. It needs to be an organic experience. It's uncommon for something to force feed something like that for them to accept it.
Yeah.
Um, so I honestly, I felt sympathetic. I was like, you guys, you probably had a long day. Do you want some AC? Do you want some water? I'd chat with them. I'd be like, and if they were cool, I'd be like, listen, guys, like I served a mission too, and it eventually would come up. Well, I didn't always say that. If they started prying, it would eventually come to that. And half the time, they'll be like, gotta go. Like you are going to be a terrible influence on us. I no. And other missionaries are like, all right, that's fine, cool.
Yeah. Are they instructed to kind of lean more towards the gotta go side of things?
For the most part,
Yeah.
Again, that's each mission and missionary. Like it's depends on what the mission president has recommended they do.
Yeah.
But one time, this is really really interesting exchange, and it just shows kind of like kind of how much programming they have. I don't know. So I invite some missionaries in, grab a glass of water. We chat for a few minutes, and we were chatting, and I was like, look, and I know all the rules. I was like, if you guys want to come back over here, chill out, like take a break, you can count me as a lesson. Numbers are everything to missionaries, so like you're not going to waste your time. If you want a lesson more or less qualifies as like you have a prayer and you share some gospel thing, like right,
Yeah.
a teaching moment. It's like if you guys want to legitimately have a lesson, that's cool, and you guys can hang out, whatever. I don't care. Like life sucks as a missionary, I get it. And we had a good conversation. At the end of it, they were like, well, here's our pass along card, and if you ever decide to come back, here you go. Here's our information. And I was like, I mean, like, did you not hear what I just said? Like, and I said, no, thanks. Like, and I wasn't mean about it. I was just like, like there's the whole salesman tactic. Like if you can get it in their hands, then it's theirs, right?
Yeah.
Like it's you're mostly there. And so I didn't accept the card politely. And we're chatting, and then he again like goes like, well, if you have any neighbors or anything who are really looking for it and need some help in their life or need to find Jesus, will you give it to him? And he hands me back the card, and I was like, guys, if there's something that I was raised in that I actively don't believe and I don't support and don't believe, why am I going to subject one of my neighbors or friends to this?
Mm.
And he was like, oh.
Well, you can always just give those to me. I love it. Because I just love talking. I just love talking religion, theology, philosophy. So when I see him down my street, I'm like, hi, like, come to my house. But I just welcome the environment to talk anyone's religion, anyone's philosophy. But that's so fascinating. So we'll wrap up here with just a few quick questions about you. And man, see, the thing is, today was mostly about just getting your story out there, because I thought this is a really interesting story in perspective for people to hear. But one thing I really enjoyed while working with you was your vast knowledge of Mormonism. And you would randomly like, hey, Bryce, you'd like come over to my cubicle, be like, hey, Bryce, do you want to hear something fun? And you would tell me about like the, I think it was like the Adamic priesthood or something like that. And you would go into these...
Ironic.
What was it called?
Aaronic priesthood.
That's right. That's ironic. No, you'd go into these deep slices of like Mormonism, and I would learn so much from you, and so I really always appreciated that. But maybe sometime in the future I can have you back on to talk about like the Aaronic priesthood or something like that, because it's fascinating. It really is. But okay, so a few just 8 questions here to wrap up, and what these are about is we want to see where you are now. And nobody fits into a box. I'm a firm believer nobody fits into a box, and that the answers to these questions are not definitive or solid. Like, it's not like they're locked in place. Some of these questions might be the first time you've contemplated things, but they're just kind of a fun little like, oh, what do I think about that? So you can wax or wane or be as abrupt as you want on these. But the first question, and these questions were put out for people online. They're put out by a guy named James W. Sire. You got to say that middle initial, I've learned. And
important.
They're from his book, The Universe Next Door. It's a book all about worldview, religion, philosophy, and classifying all the various beliefs within them. But the first question is, what is, to you, Sean, what is the prime reality, the really real? To this, you might answer God or gods or the material cosmos. What are the building blocks of reality?
Oh man, it's a good question. Physical matter, string theory. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Energy. How about that? It's energy.
Could you define energy in your mind as almost physical and spiritual to a degree, or no spirit whatsoever?
Yeah, no spirit whatsoever. I would say it's. I guess if you want to get really nerdy, it's.
We do.
This isn't the perfect answer, but okay. Energy. I guess you could almost say like, but primarily entropy. Entropy. That's what our reality is. All things are possible by entropy.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that'll come up here, because this is the fundamental. This question, James W. Sire, is the most fundamental. It sets boundaries for the answers that can consistently be given to the other 6 questions. Okay. What is the nature of external reality? This is question number 2. What is the nature of external reality? That is the world around us. So here our answers point to whether the world was created or autonomous, chaotic or orderly, matter or spirit. So what is it?
Entropy.
Entropy. Yep. And so I was thinking to come up. So it sounds like entropy would be now would you say that's more like chaotic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I am no quantum
Yeah,
scholar. Um,
we don't have room for those
um,
here.
yeah, but yeah, basically chaotic. And I know that there's you know, there are laws of nature, so eventually, some kind of order does become established. But I think at its core, well, I mean that's the chicken or the egg,
Mm.
like entropy. But through entropy, did did the laws of nature, did gravity, did all these these forces, or did those exist, or are they a product of entropy? I think they existed beforehand.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
I think they did. Yeah, because that would spawn the progression of entropy without any strings attached. Like you're just kind of nothing.
So entropy fell into these laws that we see within like physics and
I think so. I
yeah.
think so.
Yeah, and again, we don't have to
Yeah.
know. Like it's just seeing where you're at currently with this. And one of the fun thing about these questions is, you might have an answer right now, and then what's cool, I think, when I get with these questions is like an hour later you might have a different answer on it because it's been ruminating in your brain, and you're like, wait a second, But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fun because these kind of lay out the whole foundation for how you interpret the world. And so part of this also is, you might say that is your reaction to the world personal or objective? Does the universe, and this is like kind of question 2B, does the universe care about you? I kind of
No.
get where you're going, but I don't want to answer for you. So no, you would say, right?
Yeah, I would say no. But you know what, universe? I don't care about you either.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, so you're just a part, you're just in this. And this gets to the next question. Question 3 is, what is a human being? Right. And so to this, you might answer a highly complex machine, a sleeping god, a person made in the image of God, a naked ape. What is a human being?
Um, a product of evolution. Um, like it's really, I don't know. It's either we're either just a step of evolution, or we're a predetermined program in somebody's simulation.
Wow, there is now really speaking, like when you get to the predetermined program in someone's simulation, are you getting to that seems to fly in the face of your entropy though.
So I guess I should say that was a poor choice of words.
Yeah,
Predetermined is probably the core mischosen word.
sure.
No, I mean, and yeah, it totally flies in the face of it. And I guess that maybe to append those previous answers, um, I could safely say for the previous questions, but also I would assume for the next few questions. And this applies to basically all religion as well. Um, I don't care. That like in sorry to go back to religion for a second, but I think it does apply. I meant to say earlier. It's like an infomercial where to sell the product, you first need to create a problem.
Mm, yeah.
And I feel like religion is very much has elements of that to it. Like you first need to establish a soul that is sinful and going to hell. There's your problem. Where's the solution? Religion.
Mm. I've said before that like to friends that Coca-Cola their goal isn't to quench thirst, their goal is to generate it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if
Right,
they
I
actually
get
quench
that.
it, if you actually quench it, they have no product to sell. Like they've got
Well, Gatorade is the thirst quencher.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but to so
So humanity. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. Religion. I am so at peace with a question mark. Like the I don't know, I don't care, and it's not. it's not like apathetic. It's not nihilist. It's nuanced. I've read up on it once. I don't
Yeah.
recall what I would classify myself as. Some obscurity. I don't know.
Sure.
Sure, there's, but it's I just I have finite time. I have no idea what's on the other side.
Mm.
It could be awesome. It could be absolutely nothing. I like to think that I'm just going to get absorbed back into the ether, but at the end of it, I don't really care. But I know that I have time here and now to appreciate it. So I'm going to be a good person and do what I can do, and yeah, I want to learn as much as possible. So
To be
yeah,
present, and enjoy the moment. Because you would say that's probably all. Because the question 4 is what happens to a person at death, and you just kind of naturally went to that, which is why these questions are great because they're a natural progression. But so what happens to a person at death? You would say you would hope you would get reabsorbed into the ether, but you don't know. Like, what you do know is you're here now. Am I hearing you correctly?
yeah,
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 that's cool.
yep. Hey, side note, I know we're getting short on time.
Yeah.
Even as a staunch, active, believing Mormon, I actively took the argument. Mostly as like a devil's advocate, but there was definitely truth to it. Of like, sure, I want to live for a really long time, past 100 whatever years.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at forever and all eternity, eventually you're going to check all the boxes of every conceivable thing to experience and every conceivable way to experience those. Then what do? It's going to be boring.
Yeah.
Do you want to live for all time and eternity? Like, what the hell are you really going to do?
Even as a god of your own planet? No.
Oh, Mormons the teachings of that church, they are stepping away from that one.
No,
that is
really?
a skeleton in the closet now. But no, and the answer that is often parroted back is well, like, you're going to have the love of all of your spirit children, and you're going to be occupied with loving them so much that you'll never grow tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, okay, right.
So I think where you're going to enjoy, now that we've kind of laid the basis for those 3 kind of like, once you set that first question, the rest of the answers are kind of obvious in where they were going. But I think the next 4 questions get a little bit more interesting, possibly to you as well. And that is, why is it possible to know anything at all?
Why is it possible to know anything?
So let me give you the rest of the pretext here. Sample answers include the idea that we're made in the image of an all-knowing God, or that consciousness and rationality developed under the contingencies of survival and a long process of evolution. Right. So why, in your opinion, why is it possible to know anything at all, or is it even possible to know anything at all?
I mean, you could take it from a philosophical point. It's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer for it. I mean, like, a thought that often I like to think about in the back of my head, who is I'm probably gonna miss. I don't even want to say who, because I'll probably poorly misattribute it. But there's the how can you know anything at all, because you're always, everything you experience is like is a layer of separation from your brain. Like, your brain doesn't have eyes, but your eyes send that information to your brain. Mm-hmm. The same with the rest of your senses. So your brain has to trust your senses. Your brain doesn't really factually know that the sun is out. It's just relying on what your eyes and what your skin temperature, is telling you. You don't really know. So, I mean, you can go that angle, right?
Yeah.
Like input, how do you
impulse,
know?
Rationality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's always an interesting thing it's kind of annoying how often that question comes up, because it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But how do we? I don't have a good answer. I mean, you got your neurons, you got your brain matter, you got your the folds in your brain. somewhere in one of those folds is the memories of your birthday. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that, especially when you get into I've studied like people who have like what do they call them, strokes and stuff like that, and they come out with different personalities and different just different takes on things, and into the study of like memories and how accessing memories, that people say that they change over time and all that kind of stuff. It's like this isn't really part of the question. It kind of comes up in question 7, but it's like, does the past even exist? What is existence? It's just like, it's really, it gets really fun to me when you start postulating on that kind of stuff. But so when it comes to that, then, because this is a really good setup for the next question is, how do we know what is right and wrong?
Oh, another good question. I don't know if you want to apply morality to that or not,
Yeah,
but
I'd say so.
um, yeah, that is another great like philosophical question. Um, because yeah, I mean, right and wrong that often goes hand with nurture versus nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people think it's great to like it's totally acceptable and fine to throw somebody in a volcano. Others not.
Yeah.
So what's right and wrong? Um, what is right and what is wrong? I think that's being I
Would you go the evolutionary route where like notions of right and wrong develop to stimulate survival?
yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I like that angle. Yeah, it's right and wrong. Obviously want to be right, be part of the group, be part of the tribe. If
Mm-hmm.
you're wrong, then you're getting kicked out, and you'll have less opportunity to survive. So you want to be a team player, and then so on and so forth. Your caves turn into huts, and your huts turns into houses, and your house turns into skyscrapers and apartments, and it's just a building towards a better future. Um, and yeah, I think it's just uh, interesting angle. You could also say like I mean, again, you probably poked plenty of holes into it, but another fun theory to think about is selfishness.
Mm.
There's I don't recall what it is, but anything and everything is directed or guided by selfishness.
Mm.
I don't want to die. Of course, I'm not going to kill you. Of course, I'm your friend. Of course, I have morals.
Yeah.
You know,
It was Steve-O from Jackass who I recently heard him say like he was saying how ironic it is that the number one thing we're programmed to do is survive, and it's the number one thing we're inevitably going to fail at. Like like
very true.
we're just trying to postpone our death as long as possible because we're all going to die
Yeah.
someday. Yeah. So I would add to that, kind of 6B, right? Because that's question 6. So 2 more after this, but 6B is kind of like, according to your beliefs, then, and again, like I said, you don't have to be set on these. You can go to bed and wake up in the morning and be like, I think differently about that. But just as to immortalize Sean right now, as he exists, if he exists. No, anyways, but it's can you go too far? So if progression is the goal, right? And then you get into, now we won't have to get into eugenics here, you know what I mean? But like if it got to a point where like, oh, there's certain DNA strings that as we evolve and develop as a society, we can eradicate certain, I've always thought it makes more sense to get rid of if you're going to talk from, I might get myself in trouble here, Sean, but it makes more sense to kind of eradicate whiteness. If you could program how to build like the perfect human being, I would think you'd want as much melanin as possible. So knowing I could, so you survive better in the sun. But you know what I mean? Can you go too far? Like, can you, if it furthers the human survivability rate, is it possible to go too far?
Great question. I have the opinion of it obviously takes a great amount of of I guess as it is such an open-ended question.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're talking about the future of the human race,
Yeah.
I would say with in the correct direction, no, it's not going to go too. It can never go too far. Um, um, but obviously, there's. I mean, like anything there, you can have too much of anything,
Mm.
right? You have too much water, you'll drown, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, like
Because I look at like a good case in point, a good case study would be like, I would say like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? We looked at the cost of lives that it was costing us to take over each island in World War II. And we looked at the cost of American lives and the cost of even Japanese lives. And on paper, by the numbers, it made sense to just wipe out Hiroshima and Nagasaki because ultimately it costs less Japanese lives and it cost way less American lives. But then you had Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like, which was just a whole culture of suffering and rebuilding. And, you go watch, you can see a lot of Japanese history kind of like rebuilding from that moment and the sorrow and the sadness of those major events. Right. But when you look at it from a evolutionary standpoint or a kind of a naturalistic standpoint, it's like, well, why not though? It cost less lives. It was better for everyone involved. They had the power to do it, and no one could stop them, so ultimately, and then they went on to make fantastic Gundam Wing models. So no, but it's like, so it's like ultimately is there a line to draw with that in context?
like wiping the slate clean for the sake of progress. You mean?
Well, not
Like,
even just.
I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to like
Yeah.
whitewash it complete. What you're saying?
Yeah, but no, just a point, like even specific situations in place, like Hiroshima, Nagasaki, right? Like even just to speak specifically to those kind of situations. Oh, here's a problematic, country as we're trying to establish world peace here and move the world overall into a better direction. Bomb them, like.
That's a really tough question.
Yeah, and you don't have to feel like you have an answer on it. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, I I don't want to take like the easy route out, but I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not sitting in that chair, and I'm glad I'm not the person having to push that button.
Yes, me too.
Because it's that's too much for just one person to decide. It's and it's such a slippery slope for the greater good,
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, yeah, on paper, sure, it might look like the least casualties just to wipe the slate clean.
Yeah.
But that will shape the course of everything for everything going forward in the future. And it's probably overplayed, but an analogy that I almost cringe at saying is like, who's to say that one of those people you kill is a person who figures out how to make a warp drive? I didn't want to say cancer because that's the overplayed one. So it's the warp drive.
Well, I think it's interesting just to point out that would you say, though, according to the beliefs you've laid out so far, that entropy, chaos, whatever, it's evolved to a point where the reality is there are people who can make that decision, right? As you said and I said, like we don't want to be the guy to make that decision, but we have to acknowledge that guy exists. Those guys exist, and it's kind of terrifying that they exist. With one bad day, they can just push a red button and more entropy, I guess.
Yeah.
But to speak to the morality on it, let's get away from that then and just say, wow, that's a little crazy to think that it has come to that point, though. So last two questions there, and these can be quicker. But one is. Number 7 is, what's the meaning of human history? And I think it's really interesting, as we discussed in this topic, I brought up, Hiroshima, Nagasaki as a case in point. Like, let's look at history. Let's look at our beliefs. Let's look at that through history. But then you also brought up Mormon history that, you referenced as like imagined and not real. Yet people are learning lessons in morality or extrapolating lessons, morality, and doctrine from that invented history. Any Mormons watching, please just, I'm using his term, not he's the bad guy. But no, just kidding. But what is the meaning of human history then?
The meaning of human history, it means whatever you want it to mean. There,
Whatever you can gain from it.
yeah. There's some Eastern philosophy. I don't recall. It's more of the approach that I like to apply to it. It's like past and present and future, right? Mm-hmm. And I've talked to you about this as well. But how I like to try and operate, there's times where it doesn't work or fit. But I like the approach of like everything is empty and meaningless. And on the surface, that is a hard pill to swallow until you start to think about it, or it's kind of explained. Like, Bryce, me and you, like our relationship, our working together, our history, empty and meaningless. Completely empty and meaningless. Until I choose to apply whatever meaning I want to apply to it.
Mm.
I choose that it has meaning. Because, like, without me putting that meaning to it, there is no meaning to it.
Mm.
I actively and willingly choose to value you as a person and value our history. Like the history that I had with people that I didn't care for or get along with when I was growing up, like I can apply that as that was a terrible time of my life. That was rough. That wasn't fun. They were mean. I wish I didn't experience those things, right? And that can open a can of worms. But all those things, I am applying all that to those things in the past. Why not just say, wipe the slate clean? It's empty. It's meaningless. It's not worth my time and effort to think about it and identify and put labels on it. It's not worth it.
And I think that's getting into our last question. You've actually kind of hit on it, which is what personal life orienting core commitments are consistent with this worldview. And as you were kind of getting into, really you kind of were putting a nice little bow on all your current beliefs, which is like, if it's all entropy, it's all, whether random or whatever, chaos, and we're just kind of here as a small blip in this long story happening. You have to, what I'm getting from you is you have to assign meaning to things. So yes. Do you have anything to add to that, or do you feel like you kind of already put a nice bow on all that?
I think the bow is looking pretty nice. I mean, sure, I guess I have a little bit to add, but it's just icing on the top.
Yeah.
On the icing on the bow.
I love icing on my bows. That every present, my favorite part is just licking the icing off of the wrapping paper first.
Oh man. Sometimes you don't know if it's sprinkles or glitter, but it's all good.
It all comes out in the poop anyways.
Yeah, just like how you apply like the value or meaning or purpose to things in the past. It's a hard thing to practice or to like actively do, but like every day is a clean slate. Like, why let your frustrations and of yesterday or last week dictate how you're going to feel or operate or what you're going to do today or tomorrow? And it's like, and you could say it's like you could attribute to like it's what people call baggage. Why do you carry this baggage around, right?
Yeah.
And they're just different. It's a strategy that I've really appreciated to really like let go of the baggage and never pick it up again.
Yeah.
As for the past stuff, but I guess trying to answer future questions. If like in the day-to-day life, people are like, they get in their patterns and routines, and like, well, and you know, they identify very people commonly identify as what their profession or career is.
Mm-hmm.
like like I work in IT. That's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
um and people just often get in this like mindset of like, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is my calling in life. And I look into my future and I see that I am just going to climb the IT ladder and that's it. Um, but if you take a step back and be like, no, everything is empty and meaningless, like apply that to your everything in your life. Um, and if you can kind of do that, then you can wake up and be like, clean slate. Like there is absolutely like nothing stopping me from waking up tomorrow and say, I'm not happy with my life, I'm going to go be a firefighter. Like, what's going to stop? Like, there's absolutely nothing stopping me. Or like, I can, as soon as this interview ends, like, why don't I just enroll in a bunch of college classes and study a new topic I want to and start a new career in that direction?
Mm-hmm.
I can, because my future is a blank canvas. Whatever I want to do,
The future
I can
doesn't
apply.
exist. It has yet to be written.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And your past does not dictate your future. Sure, you might have like a felony where that does kind of like narrow your options. You know,
Mm-hmm.
thanks society.
Well, I think
but
it's
but,
really.
but
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
I guess I'm rambling on.
No, no, no.
I think I drove the point home
Yeah.
enough where you can do and be anything you want to be. You know, I can't wake up and go be a unicorn, but you know, there's limits, but like there's nothing stopping you from doing whatever you want. It's the only thing stopping you is you for the vast majority of the time.
Yeah.
And that's only because you have this predetermined, like, this is what my future is.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be like that because it doesn't exist. You can make it whatever you want.
Interesting. Yeah, and I would say that your philosophy, now I'd have to blow the dust off of my, philosophy classes, but I would say your philosophy seems very close to existentialism, where people had nihilism, where they're like, everything's pointless, everything's meaningless. It's all just entropy and chaos, and the only one of the sad parts was like the only meaningful choice you can make is to end it all, So, and then from that depression, existentialism was born, and is a lot of times existentialism is kind of cited as the search for meaning, right? So when the nihilist philosophy kind of came on the scene, and everyone's like, everything's pointless and hopeless, they're like, well, how can we find meaning? How can we assign meaning? And then like the next progression of that thought was postmodernism, which is like, I think, jumping off the deep end a little bit too much when it came to now it's like everything is whatever I decide. Whereas I feel like existentialism is more like, hey, everything's kind of chaotic and random, but I'm going to find meaning in the chaos. I'm going to find meaning in the randomness. So I don't know again if I've got existentialism down pat there. It's been a while since I took those tests in philosophy, but I hear a lot of that from you. And so yeah, well. Thank you for your time. I think the last question really is just a reference to your old Greg picture back there. Do you like drinking Baileys from a shoe? I love it. No one's gonna get that reference out there, but if you do, I love it. I hope you mention it. But yeah, so but Sean, just wanted to get your story out there. Really wanted to highlight just who you are. I'd love to have you back on again to talk about Mormonism a little bit more. I guess just one last question is, you've had this horrible experience with Mormonism. Has it soured you to the idea or opening of any religion everywhere? Like, do you think like they're all the same? Like, you've already done the religion thing. It's all like they're all the same, or do you think Mormonism is unique?
Well, I guess. Can I say can I remove the word horrible from it?
Yeah.
It was a difficult time, but it was a tremendous opportunity of growth and learning and really coming to myself. So there were some pretty rough spots. I don't know if I would say horrible.
Yeah.
Try and be a positive person. But just personally as my search of truth,
Yeah.
and also being raised Mormon, they they really did a fantastic job of instilling with you like the tools to really like pick apart other religions. Their problem was that they never, I guess they, if you can see through their indoctrination, then you can take those tools and those abilities and target it back at the Mormon Church. And they're like, wait, no, you're not supposed to do it at us. Um, uh, so yeah, I don't see myself ever going back to any kind of organized religion. I don't I don't see any value to it.
Yeah. Well, I'd love
Um,
to. I think it'd be fun to have you on sometime to take a crack at those anti-religion tool belts. I'd like to see that a little bit more. I think the Soul Ward could benefit from hearing what those are. Do you still think that those are effective, like tools in the tool belt?
um, they are they had their time and place, and now they're nicely hanging on my wall.
Yeah.
Because like I'm so far removed from religion, like I don't need to keep those tools polished. Like
Yeah. You're not a farmer anymore.
religion,
You can put away the.
it, yeah, it's like sure I'll talk religion, but like when you really get down to it, it's not worth my time. I have more important things to do.
Mm,
I'd rather do things I enjoy than try and like talk to somebody that's most people who want to strike up a religious conversation, they're trying to save me, they're trying to
mm,
convert you,
yeah.
whatever, and it's not worth my time.
Yeah.
It's not worth their time.
Well, I do think it would be really cool to have you back on someday and take a look at those tools. I think it'd be cool to compile those because what we're after here is truth, and I'm encouraging everyone to seek the truth above all else. Um, Examine truth. So those sound like they would be a very useful tools for everyone to have. So maybe we can look at that in the future. But Sean, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for allowing me to steal you away from your wonderful family for so long. And yeah, I'll just say goodbye to you now. Bye.
Cool. All right, bye.